Hello, everyone. In this monologue, we're going to ask the question, can and will Hamas be defeated in the current Israel-Hamas war? So, the current status, of course, is that Israel has conquered northern Gaza, and especially Gaza City, which was reportedly a command and control center of Hamas. They had their military headquarters there, and a lot of the ammunition and the top brass was stationed there. Of course, a lot of it is in tunnels, of course. And so Israel does have control over northern Gaza, Gaza City, Shifa Hospital they've taken over, etc. So that's the current status. Yesterday, it was reported that Israel and Hamas have agreed to a ceasefire. And as part of the deal, some of the hostages, 50 to be precise, will be released over the next 4 days. And if everything goes well, then this could be extended to more hostage release in exchange for extending the ceasefire. So it got me thinking about this. Netanyahu is, of course, vowing that this is not going to end the war. The goal of the war, he says, is to defeat Hamas, to prevent any resurgence of Hamas or any similar government that is sworn to the destruction of Israel, to inciting hatred against the Jewish state, etc., and to return the hostages. That's the mission of the war. So he's not going to stop, he says, until every single hostage is returned, and or Hamas is completely defeated. He actually doesn't say or; it says and Hamas is completely defeated. But right now, I don't see it happening. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm very pessimistic, especially since they announced this deal, the ceasefire deal, versus in return for the return of some of the hostages. Why? Let me tell you why. First, let's posit a scenario in which this hostage exchange is successful. Now, I'm not so positive. I'm not so optimistic about this, that this is going to be successful. In the past, Hamas had announced ceasefires, and then it broke them like literally a day later, 2 days later. And so you got to keep in mind that this is extremely fragile, this deal, and anything can happen in the meantime. Like, for example, just to give you some scenarios that could happen, Hamas could say, okay, well, Israel has violated the terms. By the way, Israel is not allowed to fly any drones to gather intelligence. Like, there can be no cameras in the sky during that ceasefire. So if Hamas perceives something, either imagined or real, that Israel is still monitoring them, then they might say, okay, we're not releasing the hostages. Bye-bye. We're done. The deal is off. Then it's over, right? If they're not agreeing to their terms, then Israel will start bombarding them again. So I'm just giving you one scenario. Of course, Israel could also decide to withdraw from the deal. They could, for example, see an opportunity to strike a certain very high value target, and they say, hey, we can't miss up this opportunity. We can't pass it, and they strike. And then what? That's probably less likely to happen than the first scenario, but still, it's possible. Bottom line is that this ceasefire could fail. But if it is successful, and if we're going to phase 2 and phase 3, and it's actually extended, and they're saying that up to 10 hostages a day could be released in exchange for 3 Palestinian prisoners in Israel, and an extension of the ceasefire. So it could go up to a month like this. Okay, so let's imagine the best case scenario, that it's actually extended and it goes up to a month. What do you think is going to happen after that month? So according to Netanyahu, they're going to resume the bombardment as if the ceasefire, as if the 30-day lull in fighting had never happened. I wish. I wish that were true. I wish that were possible. It's just not. I want to see the defeat of Hamas as much as Israel, or more. I mean, I can't stand these people. They're a scourge on society. They are a cancer on everyone. on the Arab world, on the Gazan population, on the Palestinian population. Huge, huge mistake for Gaza to have elected them, and to have allowed them, for the people, to have allowed them to operate there and to launch strikes on Israel in the manner that they did over the last 17 years. And definitely, it'll be better for everyone, for Western civilization, for the Arab world, for them to be defeated. But I just don't. I gotta be realistic, and I just don't see it happening. If this ceasefire is successful, now I'll get in a moment if it's not successful. But if it is successful, what do you think is going to happen after 30 days? Israel is not going to resume all the fighting as if nothing has happened, for several reasons. For one, I'm going to give you a few reasons why this is not going to happen. For one, the international community is then going to see it as an act of aggression. Okay, so the original war was in response to the October 7th, but now that things have gone well for 30 days, and there's been no, we're presuming here that Hamas has not done anything, right? If they throw rockets at Israel during that 30 days, well, that's not a ceasefire, right? So we're assuming everything has gone well during the 30 days. And so now, if Israel takes the initiative to relaunch an attack, then the accusations against Israel of being an aggressor will only multiply now even more. Secondly, where are the civilians going to go? It's a huge, huge problem right now. Where are the civilians going to go? They're not going back north, because the north is completely destroyed, and Israel, for military strategic reasons, they don't want them in the north. None of the Arab countries around Gaza are willing to accept them. This has already been discussed. This has already been floated. They're not going by boat anywhere else. So, I mean, they're staying in Gaza. So where are you going to move them? There's only so many people you can move into a kilometer squared piece of land. Like, how much, the humanitarian crisis is already maxed out, and I just don't see where are they going to go. You're going to ask them to leave. You're going to ask them to evacuate Khan Yunis, which is the next goal of this war. Where are they going to go? It's going to be a lot more difficult than evacuating the north in the previous round of fighting. And the third reason why it's going to be difficult is that Hamas will have regrouped by then. What do you think Hamas is doing the first day of the ceasefire? They're regrouping. They're starting to store fuel, which is, by the way, also part of the deal, to allow more fuel in. And there's no question that a significant portion of that fuel is immediately going to be allocated towards Hamas, not towards civilian purposes. We know that. Israel knows that, and this, which is the reason why it was banned until now. Okay, Israel is not banning it in order to try to starve the civilians, in order to hurt the civilians. They're doing it because of Hamas, because they know that anything that's allowed in is going to go towards Hamas, a significant portion thereof. And so, during the 30 days is a lot. I mean, Hamas can refuel, rearm. Okay, well, rearm is kind of questionable because it's, not so sure about that part, but they still have plenty of armament stored that they can use against Israel. Plenty of booby traps, IEDs, RPGs, whatever, Kalashnikov rifles. So there's a lot of armament that they can basically put in place and employ and regroup. And like I said, they'll have fuel, they'll have food, they'll have a lot of resources that they don't have right now. And so what I'm trying to say here is that their ability to fight will have rebounded. And so it's going to be a lot more difficult to fight them at that point. And also, and the last thing I wanted to point out is that if Israel doesn't finish this job after this ceasefire is over, then the whole thing is for naught, really. I mean, remember, Hamas doesn't care about death. So whatever you did so far, whatever we did so far, it's not like they're gonna take that into account in future deliberations about how to oppose Israel, what their relation with Israel is going to be. It's not like they're going to stop shooting rockets at Israel because of what happened in this war. They'll do the same thing, the exact same thing they've done until now, including attempting to launch another October 7th if they survive. So all of this will have been for naught if we don't finish this job. So So yeah, I mean, I'm just giving you the reality. It's a sad situation here, and I just don't see it happening. And this is why I think that it was actually a mistake to agree to the ceasefire. I'll get to that in a moment. But I think if this ceasefire is successful, that's a big if, by the way. There's a lot of things that can derail it, like I mentioned before. But if it's successful, I just don't see Hamas being defeated. Now, the better realistic choice, meaning a possible alternative that is more realistic as a way of eliminating Hamas, is for them to voluntarily lay down arms. So during previous deals, I don't know exactly specifically which one it was, but there were certain agreements wherein Hamas terrorists were released from Israeli prisons on the condition that they had to leave Gaza. So if such a thing were to be worked out, where the biggest fighters, for example, top leaders, fighters, etc., will have to evacuate. Okay, so Israel's not going to capture them, they're not going to kill them, but they have to leave. And Hamas either promises to lay down arms, or even I mean, this, I don't think it's going to happen, but I suppose it's possible for Hamas to say, okay, we're just like literally surrendering. You're not going to take us in. You're not going to kill us, but you can inspect all of the areas, all the houses, all the installations that you believe are used militarily, and you can take our arms. Okay, in other words, we're going to mingle among the civilian population, which they do anyway, by the way. So, and we're just going to let you come in and do whatever you want. So that's another possibility. So, the low-level fighters will stay in Gaza, and um, uh, they'll just mingle with the civilian population, and the top brass will be evacuated. They'll be ejected from the strip. So that's a possibility. But I think a military defeat is just like I said, is not realistic if this ceasefire is successful. Now, like I said, I'm not that optimistic. I should say pessimistic. I'm not sure which word to use here, but I'm not sanguine. I'm not favorable in terms of this agreement, whether it's actually going to be successful. There's a lot of things that can topple it and derail it, and as I alluded to earlier. So I think the better chance for the defeat of Hamas is for them to actually violate this agreement, or for Israel to violate it, but better yet, for Hamas to do something that trips it up, and the deal is off. Now, let me go back to the hostages. I think that there's too much emphasis being put on the hostages here. I don't think that should really play a role in anything. While it does make sense to include it in the overall goal and purpose of this war, to say, okay, yeah, our purpose is to retrieve the hostages, it's only really a footnote, because because the reality of the situation, again, this is another sad thing that Netanyahu doesn't want to admit, and I suppose that most Israelis don't want to face this reality, which is that the the freeing of the hostages is inversely correlated with defeating Hamas. If Hamas sees that the end is near, and they have no bargaining power left, like they're going to be defeated anyway, why wouldn't they kill the hostages? They would, right? They certainly would kill all the males. The only reason they're keeping them alive, I mean, they're following Quran, Sharia law, right? According to them, a male fighter is to be killed. Okay? The women and the children, they can be forcibly converted to Islam, whatever, but male fighters killed. So if Hamas is pushed to the wall and they have no bargaining power left with those hostages, they'll kill them, right? So if you achieve one goal of the war, which is to defeat Hamas, then you cannot at the same time simultaneously say, oh, well, I'm also going to get the hostages back. Why? How and why? Why would they give up the hostages? They're going to kill them, right? If they're losing the war. The only reason they would be giving up the hostages is if they're winning the war. Right? In other words, if they are able to extract significant concessions and they're still in power, then they'll say, okay, we're going to give you back some hostages in order for you to give us whatever we want. The release of Palestinian prisoners, stopping the fighting, the withdrawal of Israeli troops, etc. So, in which case, you haven't defeated Hamas. So you can't accomplish both. And so it's really disingenuous to say both in the same sentence. We're going to do both. So I think the correct thing to say, if you could say it, and I mean, people are just so emotional right now, which I don't blame. I don't blame them for being so. Obviously, this is a huge, huge thing that happened on October 7th. But still, we got to be realistic. And so the real objective of this war is to defeat Hamas, not to get back the hostages. Now that's a cherry on the top. That's a bonus. If we are able to get back some of the hostages alive, then that's great. But I think Israel should not change course in this war based on thinking on the hostages. That should not be a factor in anything. And agreeing, including this ceasefire, I think it's a mistake. And the best outcome of this is if it fails, due to Hamas messing up something. That's really the best outcome for Israel because that brings to their demise, to their complete demise. If it fails within 3 to 4 or 5 days, whatever, then we can just basically resume the war as if nothing happened. But if it's successful in the long term, by long term here I mean like 20 to 30 days, as it's originally envisioned by the negotiators of this truce slash ceasefire, then I just I don't see how the war is going to resume afterwards. Um, like I said, even now it's very difficult what Israel is trying to do. Like where are all the Gazans going to go? But at least now you got them cornered. You got them on the ropes. You got Hamas on the ropes. And now you got the momentum of you're already there. You're already fighting. You're just pressing on. But if you stop, then, like I said, they're going to regroup, and the international community is going to be even more. It's going to be even more resistant and even more critical of Israel for resuming the fighting after the 30 days. So that's my 2 cents on this. Thank you for watching and enjoy your day.